We are going to talk about how the Supreme Court of India used open source software to process property claims worth 7,000 crore rupees, which is a pretty large amount considering Amazon and Flipkart running sales of this amount and the media giving them so much coverage. Supreme Court of India used only open source to process property claims worth 7,000 crore rupees. The problem was that real estate developers were taking money from real estate buyers and not delivering flats. So the size of the problem today, according to this press report, is 1.5 lakh crore rupees. And in this press release, we see that it is our banks which are left holding the baby, because these developers have taken loans from banks to develop real estate projects, and they have taken money from buyers to sell real estate projects. So ultimately, it is the Indian public which is at a loss. The Supreme Court also was involved in this instruction to the Unitech buyers, where it said that either you give the flat to the flat buyers or you refund the money that you've taken. The question arises, how much money and from whom? In order to answer this question, the Supreme Court made a few portals related to the Unitech, the JP, and a few other projects. And it is these portals that we are going to talk about today, and how open source was used to solve problems, to deliver the solution. So what was needed? The Supreme Court needed a high availability portal. It also needed a scalable portal. The costs had to be kept low, and the deadline for delivery was very tight. If you take a look at this particular screen, we see over here that the BSEB website crashed when the results were declared. So the students who wanted to go to the website to check the results, they all accessed the website on the same day at the same time, and that caused the website to crash. The Supreme Court didn't want that outcome. When the property buyers would go to the Supreme Court mandated portals to register their claims. So they were very clear to us that if a portal is to be developed, it has to be a very high availability portal. I'm showing you another screen in which this is the typical message that Delhi University students also recently got, where when a student is trying to access the website, the screen shows that the server is busy. That means there are too many people who are accessing the website at the same time. The website is not able to function normally or at the speed which is required. So the Supreme Court was very clear that when the portal was made, then these problems should be there. This is called a high availability portal. It also had to be scalable. Now, what does scalable mean? Scalable means that when the load on the server is low, when the number of people accessing the server is low, then the server consumes fewer resources on the cloud. And when the load on the server increases, when the number of people who are accessing the server at the same time increase, then the server should be able to compensate. The server should be, the cloud infrastructure should increase in size to meet the demand. That is the entire idea of scalability, and this is done through something called load balancers. It's done through something on the cloud, and this also had to be incorporated. The cost had to be low. So in spite of having these advanced features on the website, we had to manage it at a low cost, and the deadline and the schedule was very tight. Okay? So it is in this situation that the work on the portal was done. The other requirements of the Supreme Court was that we had to cater to high traffic. The volume of traffic on the Supreme Court website could be very high, so the portal had to cater to that. There would be a situation where there would be a usage pattern of peaks and troughs. That means there would be times when there would be a lot of people accessing the portal, and there would be time when there would be many less people who were accessing the portal. Say, for example, if there is a hearing in the Supreme Court, then the people would access the portal a lot at that time, before that day, after that day, during that time. And then after a few days, interest would decrease and the number of people accessing the portal would be fewer. So this is a typical peak and trough situation on the website. The other thing is that the portal had to cater for high volume of data storage. It was correctly expected that there would be a lot of people who were uploading a lot of their information on the website. The Supreme Court had mandated that each person who makes a claim would have to upload his address proof, his ID proof, and a few other documents that the Supreme Court required. So the storage would be very high. The storage would also have very highly sensitive data, because this was all personal information that people were uploading. So the data was sensitive, and we realized that right from the word go. High security, and the final part, the most important part, was that the entire portal had to comply with the Indian laws and regulations. One of the regulations is that the data of this entire Supreme Court portal had to remain within Indian boundaries. So it's very easy to think of the internet as a global, borderless medium. But in this particular case, we couldn't do that. We couldn't go to the cheapest possible service on the internet and host the data there, because the data had to be kept within India. So it was a big job. You know, what they wanted was difficult. And when you have a difficult problem to solve, then what do? You think like a CIO, a Chief Information Officer. And what do CIOs of companies do? They get back-to-back agreements with multiple vendors, which makes their job easy. I'll give you an example. Say there is a hospital. So the CIO of the hospital has to take a few vendors. Say there's a hardware vendor, and the agreement he has with the hardware vendor is that the hardware will be up 99% of the time or 100% of the time. And then he goes to the software vendor and he gets an agreement with the software vendor saying that the software will work all the time. And so the job of the CIO becomes very easy, because he's got back-to-back agreements with all the vendors that he's working with. And the responsibility of the entire system working lies with a number of vendors. So the job of a CIO is a very easy one, and that was plan A, that we would take all these requirements that the Supreme Court has got, and we would go to the different vendors, and we would say that, listen, your role is to give us these deliverables, and there would be an agreement where you would fulfill these requirements. And so the whole thing would come together through a number of vendors. But that was not possible. The reason it was not possible is that vendors were not ready to commit. There were such big and reputed cloud companies in India who were not able to commit, or who did not want to commit to an uptime of 100%. They all said, okay, you know, we can give you 99.9% uptime. But then if you agree to that, then you have the same problem that these universities had, which I showed you, that, on that particular day when the server has to function, when the results are declared in universities, the students are logging into the server to check their marks, it is at that time that the server fails. So if you just do a quick calculation of a year, and if you say 99.9% uptime, then you'll find that in 365 days multiplied by 24 hours, there will be many hours in that 1%, 0.1%, in which the server could be down and the vendor is complying with his agreement. We didn't want that, the Supreme Court didn't want that. So, okay, so that was not possible. It was not possible to do back-to-back agreements. The other tricky word that vendors sometimes put in their legal agreement clause is that there are many parts of the service which are called best effort services. So that means that they are not committed, A best effort service means that, they are charging you money for it, but if it doesn't work, then you can't enforce it that, you have to give me that, whatever they've agreed to give you for the money. So this best effort thing was also there. We were just not able to get the vendors to agree to the deliverables that the Supreme Court wanted. So we had to abandon plan A. We had to abandon the plan to think like a SEO, and we had to switch to plan B. And what is this plan B? The plan B is that you do it yourself, okay? So you mix and match cloud services. The requirements are known to you. You mix and match cloud services to meet those requirements. Now, that's the amazing thing about the cloud, that on the internet, you can get amazing deals. You can get deals which are low cost. We can get deals which normal people pay a lot of money for, but once in a while, the service provider gives you a very, very special offer where you get something for almost nothing. And when I say almost nothing, it also includes nothing, because on the internet there are many things which are free if you know where to look for it. So if I tell you today that people who spend a lot of money buying servers from companies like AWS, Amazon, and Microsoft, who's out there today, they've got a booth here. People buy cloud services from them. In this link here, I've got a service from Atlantic.net, which is a very well-known, a very old internet company, which is offering a cloud server for free for 1 year. They are offering you a 1-core cloud server with 1 GB RAM, with 40 GB storage on the server for free. If you just go to their website right now, and if you sign up for 1 year, you get a server for free. And in addition to the 40 GB that is there in the server, they are offering you 50 GB more storage. So you get a total of 90 GB for 1 year for free. And then if you want to continue, you can pay them their standard charges or not. The choice is yours. Okay, so this is a typical example of what a person can do if the person shops around on the internet to find deals and to keep costs low. I'll give you another example. There is hot competition going on at the moment between Alibaba and the established cloud players. Alibaba has been offering cloud services in China for many years, but not very well known in the rest of the world. So today they are offering $1,200 worth of free services. They are offering all these things that you see here on the screen if you just sign up with them. Okay? So what Alibaba is saying is that, okay, you're going to other companies. We are a Chinese company. There is a reputation. Try us out. We are giving you $1,200. And if you like us, continue. And if you don't like us, whatever. So again, the point is that if you shop around on the internet, you can get things for free or at a very low cost, provided you time your purchase with an offer which is given by the vendor. Now, even when we got these services at a low cost, since we were doing plan B, since we were doing it ourselves, we had to design for scalability, we had to build in redundancy in the Supreme Court portals, we had to encrypt the data at rest and also in transit, okay? We had to avoid single points of failure. We had to monitor the services 24/7. It can be done automatically. And we had to receive alerts if there was any danger. Okay, we had to back up fast. We had to back up often. And of course, we had to comply with the Indian laws, regulations. And the most important thing is that when you're doing when you're doing it yourself, you have to take responsibility. There is no vendor who has offered you a back-to-back agreement. So it all comes to you. If something goes wrong, you have to, take the responsibility and you have to solve the problem. So that was what actually happened. We had to, and in order to solve that problem, the best open source software that we were able to find for this was TikiWiki. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you a little about TikiWiki. TikiWiki is a content management system, and it is also a groupware. It is one of the features of TikiWiki is that it is interoperable. That means you can host Tiki on a Linux computer, any flavor, or you can also host it on a Windows. So LAMP is also there, WAMP is also there, and other options are also there. It is interoperable. It is based on PHP and MySQL. It has got the Smarty templating engine. It has got jQuery. It has got Zend. It's got Bootstrap as the Bootstrap framework, the Zend framework. And one of the claims that TikiWiki makes is that it has got the most built-in features. And this claim has been made by TikiWiki for many years, and no one has ever come and said that, no, you don't have the most built-in features. We as an open source software have the most built-in. So that's a claim which is unchallenged so far. It has got the most built-in features. So what does that mean? What does it mean that it has the most built-in features? Let's have a quick look at the key features. So what it says over here is that it's got a database tracking system, it's got blogs, it's got forums. So it's one content management system which has got all these things that you see on the screen over here. Okay, file images, galleries, calendars, WYSIWYG editing, RSS syndication, user and group management, surveys, quizzes, profiles. And then further down in this page, you'll find all the features described in more detail. Okay, but this is just the surface. When we talk about TikiWiki having the most built-in features, it's more than that. And in the course of this presentation, we'll touch upon that again. Okay. The other thing about TikiWiki which is interesting is that unlike many of the more well-known content management systems, Tiki is monolithic. Okay, it has got no plugins. So that's a very strong and powerful feature. The problem with plugins is that the plugin is developed by one third-party developer and the main core system is developed by another developer. So if you are using a system which has got plugins, then it may be that there could be a security issue with a plugin, or there could be something else related to a plugin which could cause problems. When you use a monolithic, no plugin based system like Tiki, then you can be assured that that is not the case, because all the features are part of Tiki, and when a new version of Tiki is released, everything has been tested and checked. So that brings us to the next thing, that Tiki has a dog fooding policy. Dog fooding means that Tiki uses Tiki to run Tiki. All the developers of Tiki, the entire Tiki community, uses the features that they offer in Tiki. So on the Tiki page, you can find more information about dog fooding. Tiki is celebrating 17 years in 2019. So it's been there for a long time. It's a very mature product. It has got over 1 million downloads and it has won a number of awards. Okay, so Tiki in that context was a very robust choice that we had for this project. Okay, and the workflow that we used in Tiki is that when a person comes to the Supreme Court website to make a claim, then he has to fill the form of his claim and upload documents that are required to support the claim. And then he has to submit the form to create his account on the Supreme Court website or portal. And then he has to validate his email to confirm that the information that he's entered and the contact information is correct. So once he does that, once his claim is registered on the Tiki website, then the claimant can log in again using his username and password, and then he can view his information and he can edit a part of the information that he has submitted that he's allowed to edit. So Tiki has all these features. Now I'll just show you a few sample forms. For example, there is one form that we created. Like I told you, we had created a number of portals for the Supreme Court. So, and we use Tiki for all of them, and Tiki is flexible enough to have this functionality where, say for example, a form is filled out and the account is created automatically. So this is actually the live website of the Supreme Court, which I'm showing you just now. And this is the form to fill out. There's the email, there is the password, there's the confirmed password, and then the buyer goes on and he fills out all the rest of this form. And when he's done, he clicks on register. Okay? So what happens is that he fills out a single form and the account is created automatically. This is the simplest and the most reliable way for people to submit forms. Now, sometimes, for some reason, it was required that we follow a different workflow. So this is the second workflow that again, Tiki had the flexibility to offer us, where first we get a person to register. So a person who has to make a claim, first he enters his username and his email and his password, and he first registers on the portal, and after he registers on the portal, then he gets another form, which becomes his actual claim form. So, in this situation, this is of advantage because a single person might have multiple claims. So we give him a single login name and password into the portal, and then he can submit as many claims as he wants. In the case of a fixed deposit, for example, a person could have more than one fixed deposit. Okay? So this allows that flexibility to be used. So, you fill out a form. There are different types of, there is this conditional form. So over here what happens is that at the time of registration, we make a person choose whether he is, there is a cumulative or a non-cumulative criteria in his claim. And then based on whether it is cumulative, he gets a different registration form. And if it is non-cumulative, Tiki has the flexibility of offering a different registration form. So all this was there. It was not a simple thing. It was a complex thing. And finally, there's this thing about a conditional form or a form which has a financial calculation. So over here, what happens is that people who want to make a claim, they fill out the form where they are putting in, the pending amount of money and all the other things. And based on the figures they enter, there is the formula which involves addition and subtraction and multiplication. And then the final figure is calculated on the spot. So Tiki also is flexible enough. Like I told you, it has got the most built-in features. So Tiki has all this also built into it, where such a thing could be handled. So the first thing was that we had to have a database which could be previewed by the client, and we could take interactive feedback from the client and make changes to the database. So Tiki has a very powerful mini database system called trackers, and we use trackers to be able to work very effectively with the client, make rapid changes, and show them the result right there on the screen at that time. The second problem that we had, the second very big challenge that we had, was that the people who were going to use the Supreme Court portals, we could not make any assumptions about them. We couldn't say that, okay, they are all very knowledgeable people and they will know how to use the website. So all the data which was entered in the forms, Tiki had to validate. Validate in the sense that no wrong data should be entered in the wrong form. If the data is out of bounds, if a certain value makes sense, and if the data is out of that value range, then Tiki had to alert the user that, look at this particular field, I think you've entered the wrong information there. So Tiki is able to do that because it has got a number of validation features built in, including regular expressions, regex. So if you know how to use these, you can have a very, very robust and a very complex validation system in which the user is forced to enter the data that he is supposed to enter. Okay. Now the third challenge, and this was the really the toughest one to crack, is that when a form is being filled out by a claimant, he has to upload his address proof, ID proof, and a few other documents that the Supreme Court wants. And if you know web design, you know that an HTML form works like this, that if you put a file in a form and you hit the submit button, then the moment you hit the submit button, a normal HTML form uploads all the data at the same time. So if we had followed that, then the claimant would need a fast enough internet connection to upload 50 MB of data. Now, not everybody has 4G. If you have a slow internet connection, the submission of claim would fail because that 50 MB data would fail to upload. And it would lead to a very bad experience for the claimant because he would have to do it again and again and again. So again, we used a feature which was built into Tiki, which are AJAX-enabled forms, where, as you can see on the screen, when a file has to be attached to a form, an AJAX process is followed where the upload takes place as the form is being filled. So the person first enters a few fields, then when a file attachment is to be made, that is uploaded in the background using AJAX. He's able to see the progress of the upload, and he's able to continue to fill the form at the same time. And that is a much better way, a much more reliable way of getting people to upload a huge amount of data than the standard HTML. So we did it, and it worked very well. Okay. Challenge number 4 was web content updates. The amicus curiae wanted his team to be able to issue updates to the website immediately. So if there is a hearing in the Supreme Court, the moment the hearing is done, they wanted to be able to come to the website and they wanted to be able to update it so that the other people who are waiting, they are able to see the updates very quickly. And Tiki has something called the wiki syntax, which is the same syntax which is used in Wikipedia and MediaWiki and many of the other popular content management systems. It's very easy to learn. You can see some of the things on the screen. If you want to do something in bold, if you want italics, underlined, any of the other formatting options that we use in Word, it is very easy for a person to use it. There are teachers, there are professionals who know nothing about HTML, but they are able to use the wiki syntax and they are able to create and publish things on the web. So again, we were able to use this feature of Tiki to be able to get lawyers who had absolutely no idea about HTML to carry out content on the Supreme Court portal. The fifth challenge was the back office MIS and data export. So the Supreme Court was asking the amicus curiae and his team at every hearing to give them an update about how many claims have been made and what is the total value of the claims and things like that. So again, we used the reporting system of TikiWiki, which is very powerful, to be able to give them reports in whatever format they wanted. So they were able to generate the reports the day before the hearing in the Supreme Court, and they were able to give current data. So these were the challenges that were there in the claims management system, which we were able to solve using Tiki. Then something unexpected happened. See, what happened is that there was a time when there was a controversy about Aadhaar. There was a claim made that Aadhaar is unhackable, it's hacker-proof. And so all the hackers all over the world took it upon themselves to test the security of the Aadhaar infrastructure. And we were hosting a huge amount of sensitive data. So they were able to latch on to that, and there was this huge effort at people probing our systems and trying out different things, and we could see in the logs that all these so-called anti-nationals were after us. But we were able to weather the storm, and everything okay so far, touch wood. Again, the reason for success, I think, was that this project had this spirit of adventure, where even when other people, the established cloud providers in India, were not willing to get involved, not willing to sign agreements which demanded specific performance, it is because of this spirit of adventure that we took it on. There was also a great degree of uncertainty about what the deliverables were. The Supreme Court would make decisions, and we were not in a position to say that, oh, technically what they are saying is not possible. So that spirit of adventure is also part of it, that we said, okay, we'll figure it out, we'll find a way. If the Supreme Court had initially planned, or we were told that the portal will start on a certain date and end on a certain date, and that was it, that was the end of the matter. And if the Supreme Court said, no, it has to be, you have to allow people again and again to register, even after the date that we had initially thought the registrations would be closed, even if that date has elapsed and a decision was made, then we had to say, okay, fine, we'll do it, we'll figure out a way of doing it. The spirit of adventure was one of the reasons why this was so successful. The second thing is the confidence in our own ability that, okay, we'll do it. We'll find cloud resources, we'll find all the things that we need, and at the cost that they have to be found, and we will do it. The third thing is that the belief in the FOSS system, the belief in open source, that it may be free, it may be open source, but it is as good as anything else that you get in the market. It applies to Tiki, it applies to many of the other open source projects that are there. I mean, just because the software is closed source and people are charging for it, doesn't make it better than an open source alternative which is also available, which is also mature, like Tiki is mature, tried and tested. So that belief in open source was there, which led to the success of this. Otherwise, without using open source, I don't think we'd be able to actually do this project in the cost that it was done. And the last thing was the effective partnership. The team at Amicus Curiae, they were lawyers, but they really worked very hard. And they didn't know much about technology. They were able to learn, they were able to ask, they were able to adapt. So, without them, without their dedication, this wouldn't have worked. And cloud service providers also, they delivered. You can get a free offer, but the ethics of some companies, that whether you are a free customer or you're a paid customer, they give you the same level of service. It's not that just because you have a low-cost account with them or you have a free account with them, they kind of give you a lower priority than a customer who's paid them their normal charges. So it is the cloud service providers, it is all the other players in the ecosystem, very helpful community at Tiki. Whenever we wanted to know something, we asked and they were there to help, they were there to answer. So that is why this all worked.